Is that the third
That's nice. Nice bit of grey. You're aging her a little bit, aren't you?
Look at shit.
It's not in place. Yeah.
I just can't realise that.
So start. Yeah. So you need to. Have you not done the? That's the thing. You need to get into the habit of using layers to mess up the whole thing. So it's really important to use the layers.
So can I delete the eyebrows?
I would delete the eyebrows. That's one. Yeah. So they're gone. Yeah. So do the face. So new layer. That's good. I think you've got to think about, remember we said it's like you've got to follow the angle, and because that defines, if you follow that line there, I don't think you're going to be able to define his face very well. So I would, personally, you're not going to get you won't get the shape of his face, so I would definitely try and follow that line there. Can you not use a freehand one?
I don't really like it because it's really hard to use it as mice.
Well, remember what we said about smoothing it out? You'll probably get away with it. You all right? Yeah, where, what we've done there? We've done that here as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just zoom out a little bit, let's look at the top of this hair, how you have to manage that. Right, they did a good job there. Hide his layer. Yeah, that's good. So now, if you've managed to get the ears and the face right, you should be able to, the idea is that somebody can look at it and say, yeah, well, yeah, that's definitely, what's his face, Charlie Sheen. What's his face? Next, yes, and then nostrils, which probably the nostrils and the lips is probably the defining facial. That's going to define whether or not you can work it out if it is him or not. So if you can do a good job with the nostrils and with the mouth, that's probably you'll have cracked it. So again, first thing, what's the first thing I have to do here? Layer, yes, layers very important. So we'll call that. Face features. Shift key. And then nostrils. And then lips. The lips I think are going to be, let's see what I can do here. Give him a slight smirk. I'm going to fill it black. Let's see what that looks like. What do you think? Is that Obama?
That is a rock.
That is Obama, yeah.
Looks pretty confused.
Yeah.
Nose. So it's just a little bit.
Who was talking about America over here? Well done. Okay. So America had 23 million, did you say? 23? 30 million computers. I still think that's quite a lot. Okay? And are we looking at 1980 or later on? You don't need to look at it again. So let's have a think then. How do you think we would have compared to that? How do you think we would have compared to America?
And who should I pick?
You'd be surprised actually. I think at this stage in Britain it's really starting to get some energy going. I know America is classically, but don't forget a lot of the original work was done here. Okay, so a lot of the regional development is being done here. And so we can't underestimate that actually in Britain it is really starting to take off at this point. Okay, so 1980s then, so we've put this, remind us what it looked like. What did the 1980s look like? Remind me, Russ. Give me some culture markers that we can think of in our heads.
You know, like synth pop.
Synth pop! Brilliant! That's really good because why is synth pop good? What do you need to make synth pop? Yeah, exactly. So you can't do that. So the very fact of what's happening there, computers start to impact on everything. Whereas in the 70s, it's very, they're scared. It's all big brothers out there. Computers are going to result in some brave new world. By the 80s, the sort of dynamic people are going, let's bring it into pop music. Well done, that's really good. And have you ever seen any of it? Any of the really, really hardcore synth pop? It's very strange. And I would strongly recommend we YouTube that in a minute because it will blow your mind. It's very exciting, and we are going to do that in a minute. And we've got, what else is happening? Okay, so let's say with communications now.
Digital cellular phones were invented.
Okay, so you've got cellular phones. What did they look like? Tell me what they look like. Tell me what they look like. Who have we got? Danny. What did a mobile phone look like in the 1980s? Big. How are they described, Kim?
They had like big aerials coming out of
Big aerial size. What? Give me a comparable size. Can you give me a comparable size to something, Jack? A brick. That is a classic thing, isn't it? That's what people call them, a brick.
Facebook, be careful about emails as well. And I have to be careful now what I say. Why?
Because there's an observer.
Because I'm being observed and what is the observer doing?
Video there.
He's recording, so I have to be extremely careful about what we talk about.
We
So,
were there 10 minutes ago.
what we
I mean, whoopla.
It's like, keep going. Different types of language. So we've looked at formal and informal. What I'm going to ask you to do in the same way you did in the worksheet 1 and 2, in worksheet 3, just put in an example of a formal situation where you would need to use formal language, and in an informal situation where you would need to use informal language.
Pass those two on.
Any questions?
You know what?
Everyone clear?
Yeah.
One example of where you would need to use formal language, and one example where you would need to use where you could use, or maybe should use, informal language. You're stuck? Sarah and I are here to help. Type situation, business type situation. Let's just quickly summarise feedback into the group. You can choose either formal or informal, don't mind which one you feedback on. Your example of where you need to use formal language. Lewis, just one. Job interview, formal language. Yeah. Okay, Ellie, formal or informal? Formal in a meeting.
Meeting a potential client for the first time.
Is that formal? Okay, informal to you? Sorry? Talking with your staff, what, your colleagues? Okay, good. Although you have to be careful, it would depend perhaps who the staff were, but if they're staff you knew very well,